Hello everyone, welcome to Cinema Mancuso, and this is Notes on the News. I'm Peter Mancuso, and this is the show where I break down the biggest stories in film, media, entertainment, and give you my thoughts. If you join us live, super happy to have you. If at any point you have any questions or comments about any of the topics I'm going to be covering, feel free to drop them in the live chat. I'll do my best to kind of keep an eye on it, see if we can get a conversation started. If you haven't yet, please like this live stream. It really helps with engagement and the algorithm and people finding the channel. So if you haven't found the channel, why not subscribe? We're trying to grow this community as best we can. If you're watching this after the fact, still super happy to have you. If at any point you want to kind of jump around, by the time you're watching this, there should be time codes in the description so you can, go to particular sections at your leisure. We stream the show every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and same deal as before. If you haven't already, please like this video, and do not forget to subscribe. Okay, let's take a look at the box office from this past week. Total domestic box office was a little under $227 million, which was a 127% jump. And this is mostly attributed to a Minecraft movie, implying the existence of more than one Minecraft movie. If this is just a Minecraft movie. This is just one of several. Opening at the number one spot, this was projected, or at least my projection, at least what I was seeing online, was only projected to make around 57 to 75. This completely blew everything out of the water, more than doubling even the highest end of those projections, bringing in a little under $163 million. This is definitely from audiences, just really, or at least fans of Minecraft, right? Full disclosure, I have played Minecraft, but it was never something I was super, I was just on the wrong tail end of that. I was, when did that first launch? 2011? I was 13, 14, about to go into high school, doing more extracurriculars. I had just kind of stopped playing video games, so I kind of just missed this. But I did play it from time to time, at a friend's house. The popcorn meter, right? So this is the audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes, an 88% versus a 48% critic score. So, and that's the thing, when I was seeing professional reviews, it just seemed abysmal. But seeing memes and people filming themselves at theaters, the screenings at different theaters, people were just going bananas for this movie. At least just hey, look, there's a thing I know. Hey, look, there's a thing I know. So, perhaps that explains why it has done so well, at least compared to the expectations, right? Worldwide, it brought in around $313 million off of just a $150 million budget. So it is already in the green. It's already, a profitable movie. Now, the big thing will be the drop from this week to next week. I'm going to anticipate it's not going to have a major drop, because as we'll see, the movies opening next week are smaller fare. Nothing, I think the biggest one is at most we're looking at $18 million. So, that plus the fact that it's such a fan-driven box office success that you're going to have those fans coming back. Even if they saw the movie 3 times, they're going to come back so they can go with their friends again, right? The only other thing really opening this week was The Chosen, Last Supper Part 2, right? So this is basically just through Fandango. It's just a couple episodes of the newest season of The Chosen, which is a multi-season dramatization of Jesus and the gospel. Again, 99% popcorn meter. Again, the group that's probably going to see this and then rating on Rotten Tomatoes is a little bit of self-selection. The people who are going are people who are already fans of the show, right? It brought in a little under $7 million, which fell within the projections, but on the upper end, past my target of $6 million. Worldwide, because it's technically opened on Thursday, so it's domestic and worldwide total is actually a little bit more, right, than its weekend gross. A little under 8 million. What is that, 7.8? So again, these releases are really more just to add more money into the piggy bank, right? It's not going to make huge numbers, though. Look at The Chosen, Last Supper, but the implied part 1, that worldwide has made a little over $18 million in its second week now. So, and I think the third one is coming out this weekend, or this Thursday, or whatever it is. I guess all leading up to Easter, right? So I think it's a pretty successful release strategy, right? There is a market for this. And I've always said that, whether it's Fandango or just like literally streaming it using regular television, movie theaters should have more events related to things like this, like television episodes or live events like a football game or an award show. Because like imagine in the Game of Thrones era if people could go watch like a big episode in a theater with other people. You might argue, but like it might be a little disruptive, but you can say the same thing about movies, right? Like I feel like in the context people can or should be able to be quiet, not run around throwing shit or whatever, right? Continuing into their second week as well, we have A Working Man. This is the Jason Statham newest action thriller movie. Only had a 20% drop, which is, not awful, right? What are we looking at here? It made a little over $12 million, so it's not like it was so low that it only had so much, it could only drop so much. That's a pretty good hold for a second week. And despite it not getting very good reviews from critics, audiences seem to like it fairly well. And this brings its worldwide total to about $52.5 million off of a $40 million budget. So it's crossed that initial threshold, but ideally we want to see it cross 80. Double the budget. That will most likely account for any advertising and marketing costs, right? We also have The Woman in the Yard. So notably, Working Man and The Woman in the Yard both held their second and fourth places, respectively. The Woman in the Yard, however, does not have the audiences do not seem to really like it, but also had a very small drop. I wonder if that is counter-programming because of Minecraft. I really don't know, because there's a lot of other films that did have big drops, right? Like Snow White in its third week, dropping from first to third place, a 58% drop, right? So I'm not sure if we can just not chalk it up to, I don't know if we could just chalk up A Working Man and The Woman in the Yard to, it was just a bigger weekend, because plenty of other things dropped, right? Including things that are also in their second week, and they have bigger drops, right? The Woman in the Yard also has crossed that initial threshold of the budget, but ideally, what is that, 12 million budget? Ideally, we want to see it get to 24, which is not impossible, but considering most of this is coming from domestic markets and it's gonna keep dropping, it's gonna get harder and harder to get closer and closer, if that makes sense, right? Again, also continuing its second week, we have Death of a Unicorn, the Jenna Ortega, Paul Rudd horror comedy from A24, dropping from 5th to 7th place. Again, audiences like it a little bit more than critics. I mean, well, not a little bit more, like percentage-wise, it's a lot more. But considering the bias of people, like, if you ever ask people if they're walking out of a movie theater, like, what'd you think of the movie? They're more likely to say they enjoyed it, because they don't want it to seem to others or even to themselves that they just spent X amount of dollars and X amount of time watching a movie they didn't like. So people are going to usually be, regular audiences are usually going to be a little more flattering to something, especially if they just saw it. So if something has a 79% on the popcorn meter, that kind of shows, again, it's something I was just talking about with someone, and I won't mention the specific circumstances, but like Google reviews or like Uber ratings, right? Like, theoretically, a 4 out of 5 or a 3.5 out of 5 is not bad. But because most people will just do 5 stars, the fact that it's lower, or just where it is, implies that there's a lot of that people disliked it enough to like make it known, right? Again, bigger drop though than we saw with something like Working Man and The Woman in the Yard, which also opened last week. This was a 53% drop. So it's only made a little under 11 million, but it was a $15 million movie to make. So it is still very much in the red. It's not, abysmally far away, but again, it only made about 2.7 million for the week, and it's going to keep dropping. So again, it's going to get harder and harder to get to that magic number, right? Also, surprisingly, still in the top 10 is the 4K restoration re-release of Princess Mononoke, the Studio Ghibli film. Ghibli or Ghibli? Let me know in the comments. What do you think? It actually jumped a spot. It was at 10th place last week and actually jumped up to 9th. Again, very small. It was a smaller drop than something like Death of a Unicorn, but a bigger drop than A Working Man and a Woman in the Yard. But again, that makes some sense, just considering there's only so much money to be made from something like this. But it's interesting to see that they get a little bump, right? Not a bump in terms of the money, but it kind of went up a little spot, right? Another thing to note here is Captain America, Brave New World. Again, I don't want to call it the little movie that could, because that's Mufasa. Mufasa will always reign as the little movie that could. And by little, we mean the $200 million, big blockbuster movie. But in its 8th week now, in the top 10, dropped from 6th to 8th place, though. Again, kind of similar to something like Death of a Unicorn. Critics didn't really like it, and audiences like it, but, the fact it's not, the popcorn meter isn't higher reveals that maybe, even that I just saw this movie and I want to justify my purchase bias can't necessarily save this from the bad reception. But it's made over $400 million worldwide off of a $180 million budget. So technically it's in the green, right? The failure of this movie is more in comparison to its fellow franchise films within the MCU. Because I'm actually curious. Let me see what something like Ant-Man and the Wasp, the original Ant-Man and the Wasp from 2018. It came out just a couple months after Infinity War. That movie made, and that's an Ant-Man movie. That made total, because of course this is still in its run, but I don't think it's going to get anywhere close to this. The Ant-Man and the Wasp made $622.7 million worldwide. And that was an Ant-Man movie. Because the state of the franchise was in such a different place in terms of the enthusiasm and interest in it. So now we literally have a Captain America movie. Now, granted, it's Sam Wilson. It's not Steve Rogers. And I don't think you can necessarily chalk this up to racism, though maybe that's part of it. People are like, I don't want a black Captain America. But I think more of the problem is that it's just a mediocre movie. And audiences have just kind of gotten fed up with the Marvel formula, especially since they were maybe a little bit more forgiving with something like Ant-Man and the Wasp, because it was all building to something very imminent with Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Here, it doesn't even seem like Marvel really knows what they've been building up to. So this is technically a financial success, but it is a failure within the framing of, a franchise that used to pull much bigger numbers from much weaker sub-franchises. And looking ahead to the upcoming films this weekend, we have Warfare, the next film from Alex Garland, who did the recent Civil War, which I thought was actually really great. It was one of my favorite movies of 2024. I guess people thought it was fine, but I think it's a little underrated. This is a movie about real soldiers in Iraq based off of a real soldier's story. I'm gonna give Alex Garland the benefit of the doubt, that it's not just like this jingoistic, like, killing all these brown people in their own country has made me depressed and have PTSD, right? Like, we have so many movies of those. Like, okay, it's really interesting. It's deconstructing the American military-industrial complex, but it usually is always centering the effects that it has on the American soldiers. In any case, this is projected to make around 6 to 18 million. I'm going to put my target around 11. And we also have The Amateur, kind of an action thriller starring Rami Malek. It's, again, really, we're looking at smaller fare this upcoming week. Only projected to make around 10 to 16. I'm going to put my target right in the middle, right around 13. And we also have The King of Kings. This is an animated, biblically inspired film with like a stacked cast for like no reason at all. Let me confirm who's in this cast. So here's the premise. The film follows Charles Dickens, a young author who narrates the biography of Jesus Christ. Together, he and Walter Dickens. Who the hell is Walter Dickens? Oh, he's one of the sons of Charles Dickens. Together, he and Walter Dickens embark on an adventure as the master storyteller engages his youngest son's vivid imagination. So I guess it's based on The Life of Our Lord by Charles Dickens. I did not know he wrote a Jesus story. But it has a stacked cast, including Kenneth Branagh as Charles Dickens, Uma Thurman as Catherine Dickens, who presumably was his wife. Mark Hamill as King Herod, Pierce Brosnan as Pontius Pilate, Forrest Whitaker as Peter, Ben Kingsley as the High Priest Caiaphas, and then the big name here, Oscar Isaac as Jesus Christ. This is projected to make only about anywhere from 8 to 15. I'm going to put the target around 11. It was made for about 15. But this screams, it's being distributed by Angel Studios, of course, of what was it, Sound of Freedom fame and The Chosen. So they have like a good machine, if you will, for getting these films in front of the audiences that they want them to be in front of, and to get a lot of money by doing so. So, while this is a smaller opening, this could maybe be like a dark horse into the season, though. Easter again is coming up, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. So, how much life is it going to have post Easter? Who's to say? And then we also have The Drop, kind of a thriller film. I don't even know what you would call it. Let me see if I can find it on. I don't think it's even. Does it not even have a Wikipedia page, or is it just called Drop? Oh, just called Drop, not The Drop. That's why. It's a thriller film. It kind of screams M. Night Shyamalan to me, just in terms of like the kind of the weird setup. So basically, this woman, she's at like dinner and she gets airdropped like messages about like her child being like abducted or harmed. It's like this thriller about like trying to stop the abductor, killer. Again, very, very April-y kind of movie. Just like this random thing. Studios are hoping, who's distributing this? Universal. It's a Blumhouse film. Just hoping that they can maybe get some counter programming from it. It's only projected to make around 8 to 15 million. Literally the exact same projections as The King of Kings, 8 to 15. I'm going to put the target around 11. Okay, before moving on, I just want to give a quick plug. I just started recently a new YouTube channel called Replay Rewind. 1,000 video games across 50 years of gaming history. Can I play them all before I die? Well, we're going to find out. I'm going through all these games one by one. It's been a lot of fun streaming my gameplay of it, and as well as doing like a history review and breakdown after. I think tonight actually, my video reviewing the arcade game Galaxian is going up, so definitely go check that out. It's been a lot of fun already, but would really love to get some more eyes on it, and you can find the link to that in the description down below. Okay, let me grab a quick drink. I love this picture of Donkey Kong here. Okay. Let's talk about story number 1. So, Nintendo has fully revealed the Switch 2. Of course, this was officially announced, this console, I think it was back in March, right, of this year. But we got a very short video about it, and we didn't really get much in terms of the specs or any games for it. They have now done a big Nintendo Direct. That's like Nintendo's version of just like their press conference, revealing a bunch of information about this thing. So this is not an exhaustive list. Like, this is not everything you need to know about the Nintendo Switch 2, right? But these are the main things that I think are worth mentioning and that I find interesting, right? So notably, this is launching June 5th. Shout out to my fiance Viviana, because that's her birthday. So maybe as a birthday present to her, I will buy a Nintendo Switch 2 for myself. It's going to be priced at $449.99, which is pretty high, right? For context, the PS5, the disc version of the PS5 launched in 2020 at $500, as well as the Xbox Series X. And notably, the original Switch, the predecessor to this, launched at $299.99, which is $392.62 when adjusted for inflation. So this is still more expensive than the predecessor, even with inflation. And it is one of the priciest Nintendo consoles ever when you adjust for inflation, though it's still behind the Super Nintendo and the original Nintendo Entertainment System. Though for an extra $50 for $500, you can get a Switch bundled with a copy of Mario Kart World, which is one of the launch games for the Switch 2, which I'll talk about in more depth in a bit. But the standard console comes with the console, 2 Joy-Con controllers, 2 grips for the Joy-Cons, 2 straps for the Joy-Cons, a dock for the console, right? That's how you get it connected to your television, an ultra-high-speed HDMI cable, a Nintendo Switch 2 AC adapter, as well as a USB-C charging cable. So, for those of you who are really interested in the specs and the technical stuff here, so the handheld screen, like the actual physical device itself, is going to have a 1080p screen at 120 hertz. It's going to be a 7.9-inch screen, so a little bit bigger than the original Switch. When docked into your TV or some other monitor, it's going to output at 4K using upscaling. Again, which is different than the original Switch, which was, I think, just regular 1080p. And then the handheld was just 720p. It's going to also include ray tracing and DLSS technology in order to upscale. For 4K, when you're docked, you're going to have you're going to have as much as 60 frames per second. In certain games, if you go below 4K, it'll be able to support up to 120 frames per second. It's going to have 256 gigabytes of internal storage, which is 8 times the amount of storage that the original Switch had, which I think was like 32 gigabytes. And if 250 gigabytes is still not enough storage space for you, it will support micro SD express cards for storing extra games. So the original Switch supported micro SD cards, but these micro SD express cards, they're the same shape, same size, but they have faster read and write speeds because they're technically, again, if you're watching this, you know more about like the technical side of computing. You're might cringe because I'm gonna say something wrong, but it's essentially what's called a solid state drive. So it basically, on a super small level, it basically reduces the space between different parts of the computing power, so it takes less time. So things can happen. It's about 4 times as fast, these micro SD cards, express cards, compared to their micro SD non-express counterparts, right? For the games themselves, they're going to be, the game cards are also going to be the same size as the original Switch, but now instead of being like a black grayish color, they're going to be red. So notably though, some of the game cards are only going to include a download key. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, in the days of yore, let's say it's 2002, and you buy a game for the PlayStation 2. You go to GameStop, you buy a physical disc, you come home. The game is on the disc, right? You cannot play the game unless the disc is in the console because the game is on the disc. So, that's the end of it, right? What's becoming more and more of a trend is when you get a new game today, even a physical version on a disc, what will happen is you put it into your system and there's all of this stuff. Like, you can't just pop it in and play it. You basically have to download all this stuff from, like the PlayStation Network or Xbox Live or whatever it is. Because essentially games have gotten so big that they're starting to kind of, they're going beyond what the discs can really handle or handle efficiently. So basically, when you get a new disc today and you put it in your console, basically the console you download the rest of, if not the entire game, and then basically your disc just becomes a key card that you can only play the game, which has already been downloaded to your console digitally. You can only play it if you have the disc in the console, which is like your key card. Nintendo's going to be doing something similar here, where, again, not for every game, but some game cards will only include a download key. This could be useful, right, for larger games, because the thing about the Switch is that it doesn't use discs, it uses cartridges, which are obviously going to have way less storage capacity than like a 4K UHD disc, right? So this maybe makes sense for certain games in order to bring a new kind of game to the Switch ecosystem. it would make sense to go this route. However, this is bad for physical media preservation because, again, the game is not on the cartridge. The game, you download the game, but you then need the cartridge in order to access the game. Like, your console will be like, you're not allowed to play the game you have downloaded until you put this thing in. Luckily, I believe you can still, like, you know, trade and sell your game cards, because, you know, they're not locked to an account, which is good. But again, it's still bad just for physical media in general. And then one last tech spec for the console. It's going to have about 2 to 6 hours of battery life. I like never used my Switch 1 handheld mode. Like, I'm just not really into that. So like, I only really like to play games. Like, if I'm going to play a game on the train, I'm just going to play like something like simple, just like from the App Store. So I really don't have any I probably should have looked up how much the battery life for the original Switch was. But from my understanding, people are not happy that this is so short. But again, that's not really going to affect me. In terms of some features for the console, so one of the things they announced was something called Game Chat. It's similar to like a Discord video chat. It's going to be activated using the mysterious C button. Right on one of the Joy-Cons, there's a C button, like the letter C. That was seen in the original Nintendo Switch 2 announcement trailer from about a month ago. But Nintendo didn't say what that was. So people have been wondering what that button did. It's related to Game Chat. And Game Chat is activated when you click this button. There's a microphone built into the gamepad. And this will allow you to share your screen. And, you know, play with other people. Or show off your gameplay to other people. It will require a Nintendo Switch Online account to use. Though this will be available without such a membership through until March 31st, 2026. So you'll have about, 10 months to get your fill. And then Nintendo's hoping you'll enjoy the feature so much you'll then sign up for Nintendo Switch Online, which is like their monthly subscription that you need in order to play online games and also get access to, older Nintendo games, like kind of like a Netflix style, right? And there's also going to be, as part of this game chat, a Switch 2 camera available for video chat as well. And it seems to be able to, it's not just a camera in of itself, but it also, is able to kind of crop you properly. So even from like a far distance, like if it's by your TV, it will kind of be able to, through smart technology, I guess, it's always like these buzzwords, kind of crop you. And I think they also showed off the video camera. There could be some fun applications for something like Mario Party, like some kind of game that requires you to almost like connect, right? Like for the Xbox. A lot of people did bring up concerns about like privacy, but again, that's the same issue that you would have with like any webcam. Another feature is going to be something called Game Share. And the idea is, and this is one of the most pro-consumer things Nintendo has done in a while. And I said this once about another Nintendo video I did recently, that Nintendo is weird because it's almost like has a split personality where the creative game development side is like the most artistic, gamer-focused company out there who really wants to make just the best game possible. So like they won't release as many games, but they're all going to be like of a certain quality. But then the business side of Nintendo are the most penny-pinching, nickel and dime you, anti-consumer practices imaginable. So it's always funny when they do something kind of pro-consumer. And one of these is Game Share, where multiple consoles can play a game on a local network together using just one copy. So I'm going to make up the scenario, but I would imagine this would be the prime application, especially at launch. Let's say I have 4 buddies. I don't know if there's like a number, but let's just use 4. I got 4 buddies. We all have our own Switch. If I alone have a copy of the new Mario Kart game, we could all play together on our individual Switches from the one copy. That's really cool. And this is functional across both the Switch and the Switch 2. So that's gonna free up, again, it's supposed to be a local network. It can't be like over the you can't do this with like your friend if you live in New York and they live in Los Angeles or something. But this kind of brings us back to the old days of when you would play a game. The only way to play a game with your friend was for them to be sitting physically next to you and you guys are playing like split screen co-op or something like that. So This I know is I don't know if I'm really gonna do this, but this is gonna be a lot of fun, I think, for a lot of people. Another feature of the consoles is that the Joy-Cons can be used like a mouse for certain games. And I think Nintendo is making like a driving game that primarily uses like the Joy-Cons as mouse controls. That should be interesting, but again, I don't really care all that much about that. And of course the console will have some backwards compatibility, but it's not universal. It won't be the entire Switch library, but like the major players will be compatible. So let's talk about the games, right? That's the thing that always excites me the most. So in terms of the launch games, there's going to be a Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which is basically a digital, which is like a tutorial game to show off like the features of the console. Though a lot of people are kind of upset because usually something like this is free. It's actually going to be a paid digital game for $10. But that will be launching the day the Switch comes on June 5th. The big announcement I feel like was Mario Kart World, which again, we knew there was going to be a Mario Kart game because that was like the only game they showcased very briefly in the initial console announcement. But the big thing about this, because I was kind of like, what else are they going to do? Because I'm not a huge Mario Kart person, but from my understanding, Mario Kart 8 for the Wii U, and then they kind of did like a deluxe version for the Switch, is it kind of feels like they did everything they could possibly do with Mario Kart. But this is why I love Nintendo, because they surprise. You think that there's nothing left to do with an idea, and then they'll come out with something and then go, oh, duh, why didn't I think of that? And for this, they're doing an open world mode. So in addition to being able to race, of course, there'll be opportunities just to drive around a large map and do different things. I saw one almost like grinding on rails, almost like it's like a skateboarding game. So that's really interesting. And that does kind of up the ante. And kind of change what Mario Kart is and can be, right? There's also going to be in-game atmospheric effects that depend on, quote, the time of day and weather conditions, end quote. And notably, the races can have up to 24 drivers. I don't think that means 24 concurrent real human being players, but I believe prior Mario Kart games, it was a lower, maybe like 12 or something. I don't know. Though what's caused a lot of controversy is this game will cost $80. And that's just for the digital version. It will cost more for a physical copy. This is not only high for a Nintendo game, right? Because it was a big deal when Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was $70 2 years ago. That was a big deal. But also in the industry, I don't think we've really ever seen an $80 game without there being some weird situation like it's like a big collection or collector's item or has special perks. Or like this is just straight up a game for $80 digital, and then physical it's going to probably be more. Again, people are not happy about this. I'm agnostic about it because I don't really buy a lot of new games. I'm usually very late to the party, so I'm sure by the time I play it, it's not going to be that much, all things considered. Another game announced was Donkey Kong Bonanza, and this is a 3D platforming action adventure. So normally the Donkey Kong series has mostly been 2D platformers, but they did one 3D platformer in for the Nintendo 64 called Donkey Kong 64. This seems like it's kind of, if not returning to that, it's almost kind of like the Super Mario Odyssey sequel that people have been wanting, but it's just like Donkey Kong. So that's really the thing that gets me most excited because I love Super Mario Odyssey. So I'm always excited for a new Nintendo 3D platforming action-adventure game. The Switch 2 is also going to be launching with Deltarune, the Deltarune chapters 3 and 4, along with launching on other consoles. And there's also going to be upgraded versions of the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom game. So there will be an upgrade price to access this, but it will include quote unquote enhanced resolution as well as improved frame rates. It'll support HDR. And there's also going to be like a Zelda Notes app like on your phone. I think which basically amounts to like an interactive game guide that has like dynamic maps that kind of interacting with the game you're playing. It's almost like the Wii U lives on, 2-screen gaming. And you'll be able to share your Tears of the Kingdom creations using like QR codes, right? Looking a little bit beyond like the immediate launch window, some future games include a new multiplayer game from the game studio From Software called Duskbloods. There's going to be a new Hyrule Warriors game called Age of Imprisonment, which is kind of a semi-prequel to Tears of the Kingdom, as well as the official launch of Hades 2 before other consoles. And we're also going to see a bunch of older games make their way that the original Switch just wasn't powerful enough to handle. We're finally going to see those, right? So you're going to see existing Switch games getting upgrades, but then also, again, titles that were never on the Switch in the first place, including something like Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077, and the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Looking at the Nintendo Switch Online game library of these classic games, they're finally introducing GameCube games. And at launch, the games are going to be Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, Soul Calibur 2, Super Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Super Mario Strikers, Luigi's Mansion, which is fun, Pokemon Coliseum, and Chibi Robo. And I saw a funny tweet because a lot of GameCube games are like really rare, especially something like Pokemon Coliseum. They're really rare. So them announcing these games, it's like all these like eBay scalpers just like the value of their purchases have just gone down like overnight, which is hilarious. So the main takeaways from all these announcements, is Nintendo still clearly, despite this being it's more powerful compared to the original Switch, it's still leagues behind the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, considering also that we're probably not that far away from a PlayStation 6 or an Xbox, whatever the next Xbox is. So it's still clear Nintendo is not focused on trying to compete with Microsoft and Sony on a technical level, right? And I got a quote here from Nintendo's Koichi Kawamoto saying, quote, Switch 2 is a new system with improved performance, but we'd like players who get their hands on it not to focus on the specs, but rather to think of it as the latest system developed by Nintendo. So in the hope that it becomes the new standard for Nintendo Switch, we named it Nintendo Switch 2, end quote. So again, they really see this less as competing with these other, like they're in their own bubble. And I think that has worked out for them. Because when they try to directly compete, like with the N64, particularly the GameCube, and then the Wii U, also despite its novel controller, it also was trying to be kind of like a competitor to like the PS3 and the 360. That's where Nintendo falls short. So it's always better when they really focus on creativity rather than the technical specs. And the other big takeaway for me, at least, is the Switch. It really is just the Switch, but better. And that's not a bad thing. I remember when the original announcement, I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't more novelty. But, I think this gives them the room to put more of the novelty into other things, like these new features like Game Share and Game Chat, as well as just the novelty of the games themselves. So again, I don't know if it's a bad thing that it's basically just Switch, but better. Now, the reaction to the price of the console, as well as the games, again, have been negative, to say the least. And I have a quote here from a former Nintendo of America PR manager, Kit Ellis, saying, quote, I don't want to blow things out of proportion, but this does feel like a true crisis moment for Nintendo. It just shows some disrespect to the consumer where, you just saw the Direct, you're so excited, you're just going to throw your money at us blindly and not going to even ask the question of how much it costs because you're so excited, aren't you? End quote. Which I understand, and it's really damning to hear that from a former Nintendo PR person. Though, like, this isn't super surprising, right? So we're already seeing the effects from Trump's tariffs, right? That this is very much at the center of, or at least this story is going hand in hand with all the Trump tariff stuff, right? Where it's like basically universal tariffs on every country, obviously varying degrees of percentage of tariffs, but, I would have expected this to be a $400 price point. $450 seems a little high. And interestingly, again, the tariffs are impacting this. So again, I think that's where that extra $50 is coming from, is basically trying to bake in the tariff, because we've known about these, that there were going to be some kind of tariffs for a while now. The interesting with the pre-orders, it was originally scheduled to start April 9th, so tomorrow, but Nintendo put out a statement saying, quote, pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 in the US will not start April 9th. In order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions, Nintendo will update timing at a later date. The launch date of June 5th is unchanged, end quote. So I guess the question is, could the price go up even more? And fans are really upset, right? And it's funny, so you have a lot of non-political or apolitical gamers being like, wait, politics affects me? Right? Like it's like, well, of course it does, but a lot of times people don't realize how politics affects them until it does. And I have a quote here from a Reddit user, kitten_W_mittens2189, saying, quote, "This unironically frustrates me so much. The Switch 2 was already going to be quite expensive compared to the OG, but I was still okay with paying the extra money for it. The games were another blow. Was too expensive already, but whatever. But this? Huge tariffs, plus sales tax, plus tariffs on the games? I don't want to pay $130 for a damn copy of a game, or $600 for the new Switch. I genuinely think this will impact the amount of people able to buy into all of this. I shouldn't, as an average person, be priced out of this, yet I probably will be." End quote. So, again, there's a lot of frustration around this, but, you know, I part of this, I think, is Nintendo being a little greedy, but honestly, I would give them the benefit of the doubt here, just that the cost of everything is going up and the uncertainty in the economy because of Trump and the tariffs. You know, I don't blame them for being like, we need to bake in extra money into this because we don't know what's going to happen with tariffs a year from now, a month from now, a week from now, tomorrow. Okay, before going on, I just want to give another quick plug to the podcast I do with my fiance Viviana called Now That's What I Call a Franchise, where each season we pick a film franchise and we go through every single installment, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We just wrapped up our season on Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings, all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. You can check out the retrospective episode that came out on Friday. We're taking a couple weeks off, and then when we come back, we're starting the Muppets franchise, which is really exciting. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also just find us on YouTube if that's your preferred way to podcast. You can also just go to the link down in the description below. Okay, let me grab a quick drink here. Okay, more Trump tariff talk. TTT, Trump tariff talk. Let's talk about story number 2. So President Trump has delayed the TikTok ban deadline. He's given, it was supposed to be April 5th, so what was that, Saturday? But he has granted an additional 75 days for ByteDance, the Chinese company that owns TikTok. He's extended the deadline for them to sell their stake in the American operations of the app. And Trump said on Truth Social, saying, quote, "My administration has been working very hard on a deal to save TikTok." And I'm emphasizing all caps there. "And we have made tremendous progress. The deal requires more work to ensure all necessary approvals are signed, which is why I am signing an executive order to keep TikTok up and running for an additional 75 days. We hope to continue working in good faith with China, who I understand are not very happy about our reciprocal tariffs necessary for fair and balanced trade between China and the USA. This proves that tariffs are the most powerful economic tool and very important to our national security. We do not want TikTok to go dark. We look forward to working with TikTok and China to close the deal. Thank you for your attention to this matter." End quote. So this is just more kicking the can down the road, right? So of course this ban was first passed by Congress last spring. TikTok is seen as a security threat from China. Since ByteDance is the one who controls TikTok, and because there really is no separation of business and government in China, people are concerned that China is using TikTok to either spy on Americans by accessing their data, or should I say, or putting their thumbs on the algorithm scale to push anti-American content, to subdue anti-Chinese content, things like that. And this was pretty bipartisan, this ban, and signed by then President Biden. But then when Trump came into office, he delayed the ban so that he could then take credit for quote-unquote saving TikTok. And it's really ironic because the first person to suggest a TikTok ban was Donald Trump back in 2020 during the pandemic. But then when he saw that establishment Republicans and the Democrats were for a ban, he decided, and then also I think some of his donors were like, hey, we're investors in TikTok. Can you be against this ban? He suddenly is like, this would be awful. We can't ban TikTok. So he also wanted the political win of saving TikTok, right? Though the thing that's interesting, and by interesting I mean concerning, is that he technically does not have the authority to do this. Again, this bill was passed. He cannot just basically say, oh, actually, this bill isn't going into effect. He can't do that. But Congress is sclerotic, right? They're not going to do anything to exert their power, even if it was a democratically controlled House or Senate. The legislative branch is so self-neutered that they won't do anything. So because that's the thing a lot of people don't understand, is that most laws only exist if they're enforced. It's not like the laws of physics where someone has to enforce the law of gravity. It doesn't work like that. If I drop a baseball, it's going to fall to the ground. Whereas with laws and things of this nature, the only way this is going to be stopped, or Trump's, authority overreach, is if someone challenges him on it. But no one's going to do that. Though people are frustrated, right? And Senator Mark Warner, who's a Democrat from Virginia, said, quote, "If this ends up with a deal where the algorithm stays in Beijing, then the whole thing's a scam, the whole thing's a fraud. The law is explicitly clear," end quote. So there's concern that he'll make some deal and then take credit for this deal to, again, get the political win, even if they doesn't actually satisfy the terms of the law. So what would a sale look like, right? Again, it's a lot more complicated now. Trump in his Truth Social post claims that the tariffs are helping America in this negotiation with China. But if anything, it made it worse, right? Because Reuters reported that a plan was essentially finalized, but then China refused to give the final sign-off because of these massive tariffs. And since that story, I think today, they announced that the United States is placing 104% tariffs on imports from China, which is crazy. So who would buy this thing? And we've talked about this a lot on the channel, but it's a really sticky situation because it needs to be a buyer who both has the capital to afford such a purchase, which would be in the multi-billion-dollar range, yet also is not already a competitor of TikTok, because that would create antitrust problems, right? So someone like Google, no good, because they have YouTube and they have YouTube Shorts. Meta, no good, because they have Facebook and Instagram and Instagram Reels, right? So who could make this purchase? Who has expressed interest in this purchase? We have some previous bidders, right? So companies like Walmart or Microsoft were originally part of a group that were considering a purchase back in 2020 when the idea of a ban first emerged. Microsoft makes some sense, but you might be wondering why Walmart would. It would be for the data, right? If they had the data on consumers that TikTok is able to get, that completely could change their business in terms of selling shit, right? And Microsoft, it makes sense that they maybe would want to get in the game of social media, because I don't think they own LinkedIn, but that's like a whole other it's like a whole other category, right? Then there's some new parties, Oracle, though I believe Oracle also was part of that original group. A company like Oracle, Amazon, again, Larry Ellison and Jeff Bezos, respectively, have been cozying up to Trump, so that's not out of the realm of possibility. Then you have smaller companies like AppLovin, Perplexity, which is like an AI company. There's some investment companies that could buy it, right? So someone like BlackRock or Blackstone or Silver Lake or Andreessen Horowitz, like one of these investment firms or venture capital firms to kind of buy it and then, maybe strip it for parts or do whatever they want. As well as some individuals, right? Individual investors. Maybe not them alone, but them plus maybe a consortium of investors, but really them leading the charge, including people like, who do I have here? The former LA Dodgers owner, Frank McCourt, as well as OnlyFans founder, Tim Stokely. That would be an interesting, a TikTok OnlyFans merger, perhaps. And I didn't write it down here, but I'm remembering now that now that I'm talking about it. I believe Elon Musk, there was a rumor maybe he would buy it and then merge it with Twitter. But again, that also seems like an antitrust thing. But again, like we're saying, it's not like the Trump administration really cares about those. They seem to be more, if they want to do it, they'll do it, and they'll deal with the consequences later. But no matter who buys it, no matter what happens with this, they are going to figure something out. TikTok has 170 million American users. There is a lot of money that has been made through TikTok, and there's a lot of money to be made. And for better or for worse, money always wins. So, the governments of the United States and China, and the business interests of the United States and China will figure out some kind of solution, even if it's not one that makes them all happy, because there's just too much money to be made. But also, again, we just keep kicking the can down the road that I'm almost kind of like, okay, I'll believe this ban when I see it. Like, Trump was very happy to save TikTok, but I think he's very reluctant to be the one that kills TikTok. Okay, let me grab a quick drink here. Okay. Let's talk about story number 3. So Disney has reportedly put development of a live-action remake of Tangled on hold. And this was reported by the Hollywood Reporter saying, quote, Tangled, Disney's live-action reimagining of its 2010 animated film focused on the Brothers Grimm fairy tale heroine, has been put on pause, according to studio insiders, end quote. So this was a remake announced. I'm trying to remember now if it was officially announced or just reported on, but we became aware of this. That's better language. Back in December. I actually did a video about it. And in that video, I noted about, I talked about Disney's strategy of making all these live action remakes that, at the time of that recording, a third of Disney's core animation library had either already been adapted into live action or had been announced they were developing a live action remake. And that eventually, they're going to run out of things to adapt, right? So why is this happening? Why is Disney, kind of pulling back on doing this, or at least pausing, right? It's definitely because of Snow White, right? The recent critical and commercial bomb, starring Rachel Zegler, costing, I think, something like $270 million, and has only made maybe 2/3 of that, and it's in its third week, and it's just dropping every week. Though I would argue it's not really fair, because it's not just this one, because most of these live action remakes have been very inconsistent in their success, whether critically or commercially. So I guess the question is this a true pause or is this a full-on cancellation? Again, some have speculated, and by some I mean I saw this on Twitter. So take this for a grain of salt. But I saw someone say, they were totally going to race bend Rapunzel, but now they're spooked because of Rachel Zegler. Disney, these live action remakes suck. Most of them suck. Some of them are fine. I thought the Little Mermaid Halle Bailey movie was good. But most of these are just mediocre. And Rachel Zegler as Snow White has been causing a lot of controversy, which I've talked about in this channel, because she has, she said free Palestine, and she talked about Snow White being, kind of outdated as a story, and saying fuck Donald Trump, right? All these egregious things, as you read sarcasm. So with this with Snow White's kind of financial failure, you could see Disney trying to do a PR campaign to spin it that, it's really her fault. And Variety even did a piece that's clearly just a hit job on Rachel Zegler. Though it's really not fair, because almost every review of Snow White said she is the bright spot of this mediocre movie. She's not the reason Snow White has not done well. So, if the reason they're pausing is because they're like, we were going to do a woke version, and by woke I just mean we'll just make everyone diverse kind of haphazardly and not defend those cast members. Because, a fun fact, Disney issued, helped Gal Gadot with security because she is Israeli and has been very outspoken during this Israel's assault on Palestine. But it's so Disney will do that, but they won't do more to help their stars of color, like John Boyega or Kelly Marie Tran or now Rachel Zegler. But they'll protect Gal Gadot. So, I could imagine, again, it's all smoke and no fire, right? We don't have any proof or evidence of this, but it's not a stretch to go. Maybe they were considering a kind of modern reimagining of Rapunzel to make it more progressive. And now they're like, shit, America's conservative again. We have to make sure it's not going to trigger any conservatives. So that's not, that is plausible, right? But again, does it speak to a larger issue with the live action strategy? Is the entire business model in peril? We'll still have to see, because we have Lilo and Stitch and Moana live action remakes on the docket over the next year or so. I think Lilo and Stitch is like within the next couple of months, right? And the Hollywood Reporter notes that some of the architects of Disney's live action feature film strategy, they're no longer at Disney, or they're at different, they're no longer making these decisions. So it's possible that this trend that started in the mid-2010s with, I believe, Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella. Of course, Disney had made, I think, like a live-action remake of The Jungle Book, but really the modern trend of this started with that Cinderella movie. Is it possible this is coming to an end? Again, these films aren't inherently awful, and when done right, or if done right, they have the opportunity to expand, upon the original material. But most of the time, they're just soulless cash grabs. And rarely do they adapt the films most needing a remake, right? People often, I'm not the first person to say this, but, think about a film like Treasure Planet or Atlantis. Full stop, these movies don't need live action remakes. They are perfectly good as animated films, especially something like Treasure Planet, which is one of my favorite movies ever. But if you're going to do this, why not adapt one of these movies that was kind of flawed, or at least audiences found it flawed, didn't really do well at the box office, and improve upon it? Because the goal is not to create something new and interesting. It's to capitalize on brand recognition. So, if you were, you were part of this Tangled live action remake production, and you quit your job and moved out to LA, you're probably maybe a little frustrated now that things are a little on hold. Okay, before going on, I just want to give another plug. I have another YouTube channel called Peter Squared, where I cover topics related to film, media, entertainment in a more structured video essay format. The video I have up right now is called A Closer Look at Frozen, where, you guessed it, I take a closer look at the Disney film Frozen, taking a look at what went right, what went wrong, and everything in between, using these cartoon versions of myself. It's a lot of fun. Definitely go check it out and comment and let me know why you disagree with every single thing I say in the video. You can find the link to that in the description down below. Okay, let me grab a quick drink here. Okay. Let's talk about story number 4. Story number 4. So Sony has given us more information about the future of the Spider-Man film franchise at CinemaCon, which is like a big, it's like Comic-Con, but it's for film studios and like theater company like AMC and Regal, really to kind of promote to one another. But obviously we get to find out stuff there as well. So I feel like the big announcement is the official release date for the third Spider-Verse film, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, is officially releasing June 4th, 2027, which is about 4 years after the last entry. And this is interesting because this movie was supposed to release March of 2024. It was supposed to come out like 9 months after Across the Spider-Verse, but then with retooling some of the story stuff, I think, and then also like the writer's strike and actor's strike, it just kept getting pushed back. So we were a little bit worried, like, okay, when is this movie even coming out? So, at least it's coming out sooner, because I think the gap between the first and second films was 5 years. So it's, good to see, okay, this is at least only 4. And I have a quote here from the co-director of the film, Justin K. Thomas, saying, quote, "We know how important this franchise is to so many people around us. We just could not run it back. So we decided we need to take the time to make sure we got it just right," end quote. And I always think that's the right move. What's the quote from Shigeru Miyamoto, the legendary Nintendo game creator, designer of Mario and Legend of Zelda, saying something along the lines of a delayed game is eventually good, and a rushed game is forever bad, right? That, it might make people annoyed now, but, to stand the test of time, it needs to be good, and you don't want to rush it. Also got a quote here from the co-writer and co-producer Phil Lord of Lord and Miller fame, saying, quote, Gwen and his other friends may or may not be enough to help him save him being Miles, help him save the family that's been leading part of the entire system, end quote. So, you're kind of giving us a hint on maybe what's to come. This is really exciting. I'm kind of an outspoken, I don't even want to say hater, but I am very underwhelmed by the original Spider-Verse film. I thought it was good, but it's vastly overrated. I really enjoyed the sequel, though. I thought the sequel was much better. And I'm really excited to see this one. Again, see it finally. But again, we still have like 2 years to wait, which is sad considering we were supposed to see it 9 months after the last film, but especially since it ended on a cliffhanger. But, you know, again, a delayed movie is eventually good. A rushed movie is forever bad. And then the other big announcement from Sony was the official name of the next Tom Holland film, Spider-Man film for the MCU. It's going to be called Spider-Man, Brand New Day, shedding the naming convention of Home from the other ones, Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. And I got a quote here from the director of the film, Destin Daniel Cretton, who, of course, directed Shang-Chi, saying, quote, every day right now, I'm exploring the next stage of this amazing character with a team of incredible artists of the world. How to swing, how to create an emotional story, and a ride we haven't seen before, end quote. This is going to be releasing July 31st, 2026, so the year before Spider-Verse, the next Spider-Verse. And it's actually going to be between the two Avengers films, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. I believe Avengers Doomsday comes out like in May. So this isn't that far off. So we're getting two big MCU movies that summer, which is exciting. Notably, though, Sony, at this event, that was it. They didn't announce any other Spider-Man movies. Thank fucking God. Because it seems like they have finally learned their lesson and we're not getting any other random villain spin-off movies. We've had the Venom movies, we've had Morbius, we've had Madam Web, Kraven the Hunter, you know, like all these movies. I don't know why they thought that, okay, let's make our own Spider-Man franchise. We'll make this deal with the MCU and Marvel and Disney to have Spider-Man show up in their continuity, but we'll make our own. But so audiences aren't confused with there being two Spider-Mans, we'll just make villain movies. But the thing is that the villains of stories like this are best when they are used to contrast the hero. And my biggest pet peeve is with Venom. Again, someone who knows more about the comics, let me know in the comments. But doesn't Venom look like that? He looks like a beefy Spider-Man because the symbiote was with Peter as Spider-Man for an extended period of time. Like, the symbiote doesn't just look like that. So within the Venom movies, it makes zero sense. These movies were financial critical bombs, except for some of the Venom movies. They were all financial bombs. So I think Sony has finally learned their lesson. No one wants this shit. Nobody wants this shit. So I guess the question is, what is the future of the franchise, right? Are they gonna do a Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire? You know, they're gonna do like one of these legacy sequels because people were so excited to see him in Spider-Man No Way Home. You know, what's gonna happen? I would love to see. So if the MCU does a major continuity reset, and what I'm hoping they do is just do a complete blank slate. What it seems like they're going to do is basically just incorporate anything from these other franchises that they want and just like keep the stuff they want and throw out the rest. So it's going to be really annoying if we still have like all of the legacy Fox X-Men characters running around still. But if they were to do like a major complete blank slate reset, I think the best course of action would be, you know, because the thing about the MCU at the start was, you know, here's a little history for you. So Marvel was in pretty dire financial straits in the 90s. So they basically, in order to get some money, they sold off the film rights to all these different studios. So that's why, you know, Fox had X-Men and Fantastic Four and Daredevil, and Universal had Hulk, and Sony had Spider-Man, things like that, right? So when Marvel decided we want to make our own shared universe, they really could only work with the heroes they had the rights to, or work with the other studios. So that's why they started with Iron Man, who for general audiences was like a B or C level. Like a lot of people didn't even know who Iron Man was. Captain America was a big character, but not super popular. With average non-comic book reading people. Thor was obviously an important character, but not popular. So that's why you couldn't have Spider-Man from the start. So I wonder now, if you do the MCU and you do it from scratch, and you can get access to Spider-Man, doesn't that make more sense? So like if I were Sony, I would just work out a very lucrative licensing deal. And just have them, like, we're not going to make any, well, we'll make our Spider-Verse movies, but any kind of new live-action Spider-Man will be handled by Marvel Studios and within the MCU. That's what I would recommend, but again, that they will not do that. And even if they were willing to do that, it would have to be predicated on Marvel Studios doing a complete blank slate reset, which it's seeming more and more like, based off of the cast announcement of the new Avengers Doomsday movie, which you can find my video about on the channel. By the looks of that, it looks like they are not doing a blank slate, complete clean reset. They are just going to pull what they think everyone really likes and wants and just kind of hobble it all together into this weird Frankenstein. Okay, let me grab a quick drink here. Okay. Let's talk about story number 5. So director Sam Mendes has announced the cast of his Beatles project. And the cast is Paul Mescal as Paul McCartney, Harris Dickinson as John Lennon, Joseph Quinn as George Harrison, and Barry Keoghan as Ringo Starr. Now, that last one was actually already reported back in December. I did a video about it on the channel. Though the other 3 were rumored, and rumors in quotes, like it was pretty all but confirmed. So this isn't like the biggest surprise. But now we have official confirmation. And this, of course, is all related to the ambitious 4-film biopic that Sam Mendes, the director of 1917 and American Beauty and some of the James Bond films, this 4-film project that he's doing. This was announced a little over a year ago. It was actually one of my first videos I did on this channel back in February 2024. And Mendes says, quote, "We're not just making one film about the Beatles, we're making 4. Perhaps this is a chance to understand them a little more deeply," end quote. So the idea is going to be, like, presumably, well, now I'm wondering, like, I can't remember, because again, this story was from so long ago. My understanding is that it's 4 films telling the same story, but each one is from each Beatles perspective. But maybe it's like a saga? Like the first movie will be like from 1960 to 1962. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's the former, though. I'm pretty sure it's like each one is focusing, it's like the same story, the same time frame, but focusing on each Beatle, right? And I have a quote here from the chairman and CEO of Sony Pictures Motion. Hold on. The chairman and CEO of Sony Pictures Motion Picture Group. His name's Tom Rothman. He must have a giant business card saying, quote, "You have to match the boldness of the idea with a bold release strategy. There hasn't been an enterprise like this before, and you can't think about it in traditional releasing terms," end quote. So these 4 films are all going to release across April. No, they're not all releasing in April. Are they? No. Hold on. That would be insane. Now I'm like, I wrote that down, but I'm like, fictionalized Beatles. Now I'm like on Wikipedia. All 4 films would be released in April 2028. That's crazy. Okay, this makes more sense because there was another quote. I don't have the full quote here, but I'll paraphrase that. I think it was the same guy, Tom Rothman, saying this is going to be like the first bingeable theatrical experience. So what they're saying is like they're going to release them all like perhaps on the same day. So you could just, if you wanted, just watch all 4. Like you could just go to the 9 a.m. showing of one of them and then 12. And like you could watch them in any order, I guess. Like I thought they would be like maybe like January and then April and then July. That's insane. So, but we still have a long ways to go. So this is April 2028. So just a little bit of background on the cast. This is a stacked cast. I love every single one of these actors. So Paul Mescal, of course, was my first introduction to him was on the miniseries Normal People with Daisy Edgar Jones. He's phenomenal. He was also in the recent Gladiator 2. He's just like one of my favorite actors. Harris Dickinson was in the Iron Claw, as well as Triangle of Sadness and the more recent Baby Girl. Joseph Quinn got his kind of big claim to fame with Stranger Things. He was also in Gladiator 2, as well as last summer's A Quiet Place Day 1. And most notably, he's going to be Johnny Storm in the upcoming Fantastic Four movie this summer. And then also Barry Keoghan, of course, was in Saltburn, as well as the Banshees of Inisherin. And he's also going to be like the Joker in the Matt Reeves Batman Robert Pattinson movies. He was already in that first movie, but that was almost more like a cameo. But presumably he's going to be in these films going forward. So are these films going to be good? Again, this is a stacked cast. I love every single one of these actors. And I'm not the biggest fan of Sam Mendes. Like, I've liked all of his films that I've seen. But he's not like this. Like, people could try to put him up on a certain level that I just don't know if his filmography justifies. But again, I'm almost more interested in this by the approach, right? Especially if they're releasing them all the same month or the same day. And it makes sense because there's just so much stuff to cover. So it would make sense to make 4 different films. But then you have to wonder, okay, well, I feel like there's a lot more to dive into with like Paul and John and even George. Like, is there going to be as much stuff for Ringo, or is that one going to be the shortest movie, or is it going to be kind of stretched out? I don't know. But so I'm interested to see it executed. Just because, again, like, you know, it is PR spin, but there is something to what Tom Rothman is saying that, you know, nothing like this has ever really been attempted. And I'm excited, if for nothing else, to kind of see, okay, well, what kind of fruits does an attempt like this actually bear? Okay, so that wraps up the show. Just one last plug. Cinema QSO is not just a YouTube channel. It started and still is a Substack newsletter where we publish written reviews of new movies coming out. Written right now. I'm kind of taking a little bit of a hiatus, but the newsletter is being very graciously supplied with content by contributor, my very good friend Jacob Boblet. He recently did his review of Black Bag, the Steven Soderbergh film. Definitely go check that out. You can find the link to that newsletter in the description below. You can also just go to your browser, type in cinemanqso.substack.com. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please like this video. It really, really helps with engagement and the algorithm and people, you know, finding the channel. So if you have found the channel, why not subscribe? You know, I'm trying to grow this channel the best I can. Maybe one day I can monetize this and get maybe $3 a month from these videos that I put a lot of work into. So until next time, peace out.